Introduction to Alicia. Risa. I'm learning Japanese, y'all. All right. Why learn a new language? All right, that's the first question. So this is the stuff about school I hate. It's like you're gonna convince me that I need to learn this. I'm already here. Like I got it. I've showed up to class. I don't need you to egotistically reinforce why I'm here. I came here because I want to learn Japanese, not be. This is the level of just coddling that has to go into most things in marketing and education that just drives me nuts. It's like, can we get some warriors in here, please? Oh, I know this. Get to the learning. Oh, man. Anyway, learning a new language. So, anyway, hello, friends on YouTube. I am locked in here to learning Japanese on YouTube. I saw this thing come up in my feed that says you can learn Japanese in 4 hours. So, here we are. I don't have 4 hours, but I'm going to spend a couple of minutes. And they're not talking about anything important yet. So, I'm comfortable talking over these two ladies who are trying to teach. Because right now, they're trying to educate me on why it's a good idea to learn a new language. I'm trying to figure out who's the audience for this. Like, aren't all the people here already convinced that they should learn a new language? Maybe not. I don't know who they marketed this to. So they gave me all the reasons I should learn Japanese, other than I plan to take my family to Japan next year. So maybe I should learn the language and not be that obnoxious American that's walking around expecting everybody to speak English in a place that's not America. Oh, Pokemon, Mario, and PlayStation. Now they're talking about that. Oh, they just taught me that anime, manga, and games, a lot of them come from Japan. I guess the audience for this class are people who know exactly nothing about Nippon or Japan. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's the third largest automobile manufacturer. Learning Japanese opens up business opportunities. Obviously, that's why I'm here. Let's see. I think some people left some comments here. Sarah Wood says, "What's up, B? Hey, Sarah. I'm just in here learning Japanese. Except I'm not learning Japanese yet because the two teachers are still telling me why it's important to learn Japanese instead of just teaching me the language. But this is why I sucked at school. It's like you got to talk for an hour before you get to the part where I care about what you're talking about." Hunter says, "Good morning. What up, Hunter? What's up, Queen? Mount Fuji. Actually, you know what I should do? Let's pull this. I should let you guys hear what I'm hearing. Hopefully, this will work."
Feudal Japan. Japan has a colorful history that spans thousands of years.
Yeah, sing
The
it.
feudal period of Japan, the age
Feudal.
of samurai, lasted for nearly a millennium. Most notably, the country saw an unprecedented 250 years of peace and prosperity,
Actually, let's do
giving
this.
rise to artistic, cultural, and social development.
Word.
All of which you can see and enjoy in museums across Japan.
I'm gonna get this to come through my speakers so you guys can hear the lesson too. Okay, so there's no headset plugged in. I think the settings must be off. Let's get to the settings. It's still going through the.
The good news, though, is that you already know some Japanese.
寿司、侍、カラオケ。
Here we go. All right, now why didn't that start pushing the audio? I wonder. Very interesting. Does the headset have to be plugged? I'm trying to get you guys to hear what I'm hearing, so you don't just have to listen to me talking. Yes, read. See who else is here. Let's see. Anish says, "Hey Brian, how's it going, man? Been a while since I caught your streams. Hey Anish, how you doing? Good to see you, man."
characters called kana. You can think of each character as a syllable. A, ri, ga, to, u.
You'll learn
A,
the Japanese
ri,
writing system
ga,
eventually,
a,
but for now, let's
ri,
put up some
ga,
romanization to help
to,
get you started.
u. I just learned
This
arigato.
romanization is called Romaji, and it allows you to read Japanese before you become familiar with Japanese characters.
Yes.
That certainly makes things much easier to learn. Well, okay then. Now listen and repeat after Risa.
I could hear it through the speakers in your headset.
Now you try.
Okay, cool.
Arigato.
Your turn again.
Arigato.
Arigato.
Well done. Now you know how to say thank you.
I know how to say thank you in Japanese.
We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we...
Now, once upon a time, I worked on a Japanese-American crossover album with some Japanese artists, so I have learned a little bit of Japanese, but I want to actually learn how to speak it and read. More importantly, I want to learn how to read it because it'll help my video game playing. There's a lot of Japanese games I want to play.
Arigato.
And when I go to Japan, I want to be able to do business with people and talk to them in their native tongue, not be the obnoxious American.
Hi.
What's
Welcome
up,
to
Nestor?
Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Risa.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Japanese pronunciation.
Word.
Pronunciation refers to the manner in which a word is spoken, so don't focus on reading what's on screen. Instead, focus on listening and repeating.
Guess I don't need this headset.
Japanese is what is called a mora-timed language. What this simply means is that every character in Japanese, which you can think of as a syllable, occupies the same length of time.
Sumimasen.
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 Notice how each character is pronounced for an equal amount of time?
Sumimasen.
Sumimasen.
No character takes up more or less time than the other characters.
Very true.
Every character is valued equally and is pronounced evenly throughout.
Sumimasen.
English, on the other hand, is a stress-timed language. Syllables that are stressed are valued greater than syllables that are unstressed. Opportunity. The stressed syllable to in opportunity is deemed more important, so it's pronounced longer than all other syllables. Listen to it again. Opportunity. This gives English a machine gun-like rhythm, where the pace is sometimes fast and at other times slow. One last time. Opportunity. Compare this once again with Japanese, which is steady and even throughout.
Sumimasen.
That's pretty cool, Sarah.
Because equal value is given to each
Sumimasen.
character, there is no word stress in
Arigato.
Japanese.
Sumimasen.
When pronouncing Japanese words, try to imagine a constant stream of
Mitsu.
syllables flowing out from your mouth.
Mizu. Kudasai.
There are 5 characters in Japanese that signify a vowel sound.
A.
I.
I.
U.
U.
E.
E.
O.
Oh, so very much like,
Apart from
it's
these
more
5
like
characters,
Spanish
all
than
other
English.
characters, except for one that we will cover shortly, is made up of a consonant sound and one of these vowel sounds.
Ka.
Ka.
Ki.
Ki.
Ku.
Ku.
Ke.
Ke.
Ko.
Ko.
Sa.
Sa.
Shi.
Si.
Su.
Su.
Se.
Se.
So.
So.
Ta.
Ta.
Ki.
Ti.
Su.
Te.
Se. To.
You going too fast, lady. Trying to
This
learn.
character here is kind of special. It's a consonant sound without a vowel sound.
Mm.
So to recap, a Japanese
Interesting.
character could be a vowel.
The
or
structure
more
of the
commonly made up of one consonant
language
and one
seems a little
vowel.
bit easier to pick up than English.
Or it could just be this consonant sound on its own.
Mm.
Now you know the possible sounds that make up a Japanese character, but let's look at all the sounds in Japanese collectively.
The sounds of
In the
Japanese.
previous lesson, you realized that you already know 10% of all words in Japanese, which is a miracle. But are you also
It's a
aware
miracle?
that you already know roughly
It's not a
80%
miracle,
of all
man.
sounds in Japanese?
People.
That means that if you were to simply imitate a Japanese speaker, your pronunciation would be correct roughly 80%
Oh, it's a
of the time.
miracle.
For example, listen and repeat after Risa.
No, being a human is a miracle.
Wasabi.
Wasabi. This is why I sucked in school.
Chances are your pronunciation was pretty spot on. The W, S, and B sounds are practically identical to English. The sounds may be the same, but don't forget that Japanese isn't a stress-timed language like English. So instead of
Wasabi.
a syllable like wasabi, make it even throughout.
Wasabi.
Try again.
Wasabi.
Wasabi. That's easy. That's actually easier than English.
Nearly all sounds in Japanese are identical to English, like the W.
That's a
S,
good point,
B
Sarah.
sounds.
The English is a
Example,
particularly
since
tough
we
language
already
to
know
pick
how to
up for
pronounce
people that
most
aren't
of
native
these sounds,
speakers.
We only need to pay attention to the handful of sounds that are completely new to you. They're the ones we need to look out for.
Okay.
In the previous lesson, we taught you how to say thank you in Japanese.
Arigato.
Do you remember what it was?
Oh, yeah. This feels like
is.
Blue's Clues. Do you remember what it was, dummy?
This word is often romanized like this. Focus on the second character. It's often written as an R and an I, but
Ri.
don't be fooled.
Ri.
This character isn't pronounced using an
It's
English
more
R
like the
sound
beginning
at
of the
all.
R in Spanish. Ri.
It's like a mixture between an R and an L sound.
Ri.
Ri.
There's no such sound in English, but most people would transcribe this using the letter R because that's the closest equivalent there is in English. Pronouncing it like an English R, however, would be a huge mistake. To
Arigato.
pronounce this sound, lightly tap the gum ridge behind your upper teeth with the tip of your
Arigato.
tongue. It should be a quick, striking motion.
I do like the
similar to
level of
sensation
detail they're
you get
going
when
into with
pronouncing the T
pronunciation,
in
'cause
words
this is
like
what-
butter, cutter, and so on. Don't roll your tongue like an English R. Most of the air should go around the sides of your tongue, the same way it would when pronouncing an L sound. This is why many people describe this sound as in between an R and an L sound. Listen and repeat after Risa.
り。り。ありがとう。
Arigato.
ありが
Easy.
と
Arigato.
Well done. Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this
Speaking of
lesson,
Japanese,
we learned
man,
that
I got some
Japanese is a
cool stuff to
worldwide
show you
language Where
guys.
syllables are pronounced for an equal amount of time. Japanese characters can represent a
This will
single
become
vowel
important
sound,
soon.
a consonant and a vowel, or a single consonant sound. Collectively, nearly all the sounds in Japanese are identical to the sounds in English, and there are only a handful of new sounds that you need to learn.
And so, just to pause this for a sec, where's my mouse at? Just to kind of pause, shut that down too. Kind of the point of today is, I wanted to start giving you guys a glimpse into just some of the things that I do, not come here with a particular thing that I'm trying to teach or encourage you with. Just, hey, what is it that I'm doing throughout the day? Because I think a lot of times that can be a lot more helpful, just showing you guys versus telling you. Like, how do I spend my time? If you follow anything I do with regularity, you guys know I spend a ton of time. I spend a ton of time on social media doing fitness type stuff, right? But and so I film myself doing those things because I want to show people, like, hey, fitness is important. If you're not taking care of your health, you got to do that, right? But at the same time, it's like taking care of your brain too, making sure that I'm exercising my brain is important. So it's like I start thinking about every year, what are the things that I want to learn? What are the things that are going to be valuable to me, either as a person or in my family or in a business that I own or am a part of. And I've always wanted to learn Japanese, and I figured, hey, let's make some time and deliberately go after learning this. So I'm starting with this kind of introductory course just to get a taste and understand kind of the structure of the language and set a foundation for learning. But I figured I'd stream it, and I won't stream this all day because I actually have I have an appointment coming up here in a little over an hour. But I wanted to start showing, like, here's kind of how I'm spending my time. Here's some of the things that I'm doing that are beneficial to me, and just encourage you all to follow suit. Now, maybe you don't need to learn Japanese, but maybe there's a class that you can take online or otherwise that helps you get to a place or get to something that you want in your life. So I just wanted to, like, have some more videos that show what I'm up to, not just me pontificating or trying to educate on some thing. Like, here's what to actually do. Go get educated. Go learn stuff that's important to you, man. What is the website or program you're listening to? It's called Learn Japanese in 4 Hours. All the Japanese basics you need. It's a YouTube video that's presented by JapanesePod101.com. I think it's like a shell company that probably shits out this type of stuff and gets a lot of attention and sells courses, if I had to guess. But I'm just taking their online 4 hour. Here's an introduction to Japanese so you can learn, get an idea of what the language is like. That's all. It's on YouTube. Let's see. Hunter says, B, why are learning this way? Why am I learning this way instead of something like immersive? I have no idea, Hunter. This is what was available to me. So I took advantage of it. I don't have a deeper answer than that, why I'm not doing immersive. I don't know. Because this looked interesting. I'll have a better answer for you. Nick says, good morning, afternoon. What up, Nick? Mama says, I emailed you back. Yeah, I know. I will be back with you soon.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Japanese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Japanese grammar. Word order refers to the order in which words are structured to form a sentence in a given language.
Word.
Consider the English sentence, I ate an apple.
I ate an apple.
Let's remove the article an here.
Hey, Fade Dragon Tier, what's up, man? Long time no see, brother. How you been?
Is subject, verb, object, or SVO for short. If we break down the English sentence, I ate apple, we can see that the subject I is presented first, followed by the verb ate, and then finally the object apple is positioned last. This is the basic word order for sentences in English.
Now, let's compare the same sentence, I ate an apple, in Japanese.
私がリンゴを食べました。
Like before, let's remove the particles to keep it simple.
私リンゴ
So we're just left with the words.
食べ
If we break down
食べました。
the Japanese sentence,
食べました。
we get the subject,
食べました。
watashi, meaning I.
私
Then comes the object.
That is a long way to say I. Watashi is how you say I in Japanese. Listen, Japanese folk, we gotta work on this shit. Y'all can't be making long ass words for I. Watashi. That's long. What's the abbreviate? Do we have Japanese people here? There's gotta be a simpler way to say watashi. It's too long. I'm criticizing these people's language like I'm some type of language authority. Nope, I'm just an impatient asshole. Ringo.
Meaning apple.
It's an apple.
And finally, we have the verb 食べました meaning
Tabemashita. Oh, it's mashita, not mashita. Mashita.
It's subject,
Tabemashita.
object,
It's like Sosuke.
verb, or SOV for short.
In both languages, the subject is presented first. In English, though, it's followed by the verb and then the object, compared to the object being first and the verb last in Japanese. The same sentence in Japanese.
It's the same as every other language but
I,
English.
Subject first, then object, and verb last, SOV. This is the
Word.
basic word order for sentences in Japanese.
Okay, let's move on to the next section.
Hunter says a reason is a reason. Word up, man. It's good to see you, by the way.
English is what is called a subject-prominent language.
Yeah.
This simply means that the subject is slightly more important than other components in a sentence. It's the key piece of information other components in a sentence relate to. Who is doing the action is slightly more important.
Fade says, good to see you doing your thing. And oh, you're making moves, man. Good. What are you working on nowadays,
If we
man?
had to slowly remove pieces of information from a sentence while trying to keep its
I've been
essence
kind of
intact,
removed from the
logically we would do so in
social
order of
media
least
sphere.
important to most important. If we were to omit the subject, we would get ate an apple, which sounds strange.
Washita.
On the other
Watashi.
hand, if we were to omit the object
Watashi.
instead, the sentence would become
Tabemashita.
I ate. Even though in each instance we omitted a piece of information, the reason I ate sounds less strange is because we've yet to break any grammatical rules, and so there's still potential for the sentence fragment to become a complete sentence and to become grammatically correct. Since the latter is logical, this indicates that the subject is more important than the object in English. The same would have been true if we had omitted the verb. Since the subject is the integral component in the sentence, this makes English a subject-prominent language.
Japanese, on the other hand, is a topic-prominent language. Unlike
私がリンゴを
English, each Japanese
食べました。
sentence is the topic, not the subject. Essentially, the ate an apple portion, リンゴを食べました is the main focus of the sentence.
All right, so Fade says, and this is an opportunity not just for me to learn Spanish, not just for me to learn Japanese, but also just to say hi to you guys and let you know kind of if you've been following me on any of the social medias or my podcast, why you haven't seen content from me. It's taking some time off, just regrouping and getting some of my mental and emotional health stuff in a stronger place. I've spent the last year really pouring into a lot of people's lives and it left me kind of depleted. So I've been taking time away to get myself back to right so I can be of better service to people. But I figured since I was going to be learning Japanese, this would just be a fun, quick hangout I could do that doesn't really require a whole lot of my brain or heart power to give to you guys and ladies. So that's what's going on here. My man Fade says, so much in real life, you adopted an angsty teenager. So that's like a ton, yeah, I can imagine. That's a ton right there. Also, Serenial is now a record label making music, shooting music videos. We have a weekly podcast as well as a VTuber. Sweet. So your hands are full, a lot of pots. That's what I like, man. I appreciate that, dude. That's awesome. You've been building that thing for a long time, brother. I'm glad to see a lot of your stuff coming to fruition, dude. That's awesome. All right, back to the Japanese.
The I is deemed less important and can be omitted.
In fact, if it's obvious what the subject is, or if it's already been established, it's quite normal to omit the subject from the conversation altogether in Japanese. Let's look at this aspect in a bit more detail. More often than not, if you wanted to say, I ate an apple in Japanese, you would not say,
私がリンゴを食べました。
食べました。
Instead, you would more likely say, apple ate in Japanese.
リンゴを食べました。
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 Since Japanese is a topic-prominent language, the
リ
information
ンゴは
shared
食べ
is
ま
the
し
act
た。
of eating the apple. Less important is the subject, which is omitted altogether. Most Japanese sentences are constructed and spoken like this in real life.
Got it.
In most situations, such as a one-on-one conversation, it's clear that the person who's speaking is the subject.
Yeah, of
In
course.
cases where it's obvious who or what the subject is, it's almost guaranteed that the subject...
Dude, I like this. God, this is so much more efficient than English. I think I'm supposed to be Japanese or African. There's a lot of African. Actually, I am quite African, Sudanese, Ghanaian, and Nigerian. But like, there's a lot of similarities to certain African cultures and Asian cultures. When I did that record deal years ago with the Japanese artists who were crossing over to America, my my lead producer musically on the album is actually a dude who's from Ghana. And when all of us got together at the studio and started figuring out how we're going to make this album, it was really cool to watch the Japanese artist and he and his crew and family interact, because they started to be like, yo, you do this in your culture? Like, we do this. Like, it was like, wow, there's so many similarities between, and what it really just goes to show you is we humans are way more alike than we are different. And if we can learn to appreciate those things about us that are similar and just allow us to have some differences, man, we'd all get along a lot easier. One of the things I like about this is this is so efficient, such a more efficient way to communicate that requires the listener to be tuned in and imply some things in what's being said, versus in English it would be a long ass sentence. In Japanese it's literally ringo tabemashita. Like, that's all you have to say. You don't have to say all that other stuff. The person listening knows I'm talking about myself. So you can almost take the narcissism out of the sentence altogether, because if you're talking about an apple that's eaten, you're probably this is cool. I wish English would take a page out of this book, and in some ways we do. But it's not like grammatical rules. It's shortcuts that the English speaker kind of builds into the language. But this is cool, man. Well done, Japanese. Let's keep it going.
Subject will be omitted. And so you're left with...
リンゴを食べました。
リンゴを食べま
On
し
the
た。
other hand, when it's unclear who or what the subject is, or if you wanted to place emphasis on the subject, like if you wanted to declare from a group of people that it was you who ate the apple, then you would include the subject.
私がリンゴを食べました。
But more often than not, most sentences spoken in daily Japanese conversation can be spoken without including the subject at all, particularly if that subject is you.
箱を開けました。電車で帰りました。
Knowing this, we can easily express any simple act
箱を
in
開け
Japanese
ました。
using just the object and the verb.
And even the roots of the word. Whoa. So, wait a minute. Ate, opened. So all these verbs have the same, I don't know the right term for it. Mashita, mashita, mashita. It's all in their verbs. Dude, this might be way easier to learn than dang English. I'm going to be a Japanese speaking fiend by the time I get to the end of this. This is
Try to create
cool.
the sentence, I ate a hot dog.
Yeah,
with
eat it.
sets of words.
Tabemashita.
ホットドッグ。
Hotodogu. They took an English word and just Japanized it. Is that a word? Can you say Japanized? Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome though that makes it so easy. Wow. Well done, Japan. This is fun. Having a good time learning.
Okay, got it? The object goes first, so let's put hot dog here. And
Hotodogu.
the verb goes last, so let's put
Hotodogu.
ate at the end.
Tabemashita.
Finally, we connect them using the appropriate particle. And that's it.
ホットドッグを食べました。
Hotodogu.
I ate a
Tabemashita.
hot dog in Japanese.
That's cool.
ホットドッグを食べました。
You can create any basic sentence like this in Japanese if you simply know the word for the object and the verb in Japanese.
Wow.
Well done. Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that Japanese sentences are formed using a subject, object, verb, or SOV word order. The most important aspect of Japanese sentences is not the subject of the sentence, but the topic.
Yes.
Most sentences spoken in Japanese will not actually contain a subject, especially if that subject is obvious.
Understood.
Like yourself, the speaker. And lastly,
I love Japanese already.
By putting the object first and the verb last.
All right. Let's take some comments. That was a great lesson. Man, I'm only 17, 18 minutes in and we're already learning. I think my man Jolly just showed up. What's up, Jolly D? He says, wait, you really learning Japanese? Yes, I'm really learning Japanese. He says, this isn't some ploy or point you're trying to make. Nope. No ulterior motive, no manipulation, just actually learning Japanese and hanging out with you guys while I do it. I've been meaning to do this for a couple of days, but I needed a week to basically be separated from all humans because I was getting exhausted with humanity. When you do what I do in life, you have a tendency to get exhausted with humans pretty often because it's hard work. But also just having the time to sit down and actually start the lessons. But I wanted to do this and share it with you guys and say, hey, here's something we could all do together. We could all get smarter. And here is basically just trying to show you guys, here's what I'm doing to put my money where my mouth is, because I talk so much about getting educated and being a self-starter and taking action and making yourself a stronger, better, more wise person. And I want to show people that I actually do the shit I preach. Like, I'm not just telling you you should be reading 3 books a week. I'm actually in here going through my books. In fact, I'm having to go through books I've already written because I just added a section to one of my coaching programs, my text-based coaching program. Now I do book recommendations for people. So I'm going back through a lot of my old books to figure out which ones I want to recommend to people that they pick up and to give them good explanation as to why you should pick up. Like, for example, this book, one of my favorite lines in it is the purpose of marriage: support each other's hopes and aspirations and build a sense of purpose into their lives together, right? So when you talk about successful marriages, it's not people who come together because they want to be happy. Like, that's Hollywood bullshit. Like, happiness is always a byproduct of doing the right shit. But most people chase happiness. It's why they're unhappy. Because you don't understand that happiness is your work and making sure you're doing the right work. Oh, here we go. Hollywood has distorted our notions of romance and what makes passion sizzle. Real life romance is fueled by far more humdrum scenes. It is kept alive each time you let your spouse know he or she is valued during the grind of everyday life. One of the most romantic experiences my wife and I had was probably 3 years ago. She came to me and said, hey, will you go to the laundromat with me? Because our house had become, I have a huge family, and our house had just gotten overwhelmed with laundry. Our home could not keep up with the amount of laundry we had because we had just moved another person in to live with us too. And so it was like, all right, let's just go to the laundromat where we can throw everything in like 19 different washing machines and do it all at once. And we basically went on a date to the laundromat. We were there till it closed. And beyond the closing, the guy that was running the place came up to me. He's like, hey, man, if you need to stick around, like, we're technically closed. He's like, but I ain't going anywhere. The owner just has me hang out here and he pays me. He's like, if you guys want to kick it and go order some food, he's like, you're fine to stay past closing. So my wife and I stayed past closing to finish our laundry. And we were there till probably after midnight, eating Chick-fil-A and just laughing. And that was one of the most romantic dates we had been on in forever, because it was this shared struggle that we're going to overcome something together. And was it an experience, or was it axe throwing, or all this shit you millennials seem to need all the goddamn time to feel alive? And I want to hang myself when I listen to people talk. Like, if one more marketer says, you got to create an experience, like, fuck you. You're living a charmed life. All your fucking experiences. Go help somebody. That'll make you feel alive. You no-count human. You know, but it was amazing just having that time with her. So anyway, just trying to show that I actually do the shit that I preach. Fade says, I feel it takes more than a week to recharge. Yeah, I'm taking the next probably month off from doing any regular shit. I'm off. It's not like this shit isn't a job for me. The social media stuff I do. I just recorded my most recent podcast before I came on here, and like my social media is, you're seeing 2% of my existence. Like people think this is me and this is what I do. It's like, dude, this is 2% of my life. What I do online is a very small portion of what I actually do to contribute to this planet. And I prefer the offline world, frankly, because it's less, it still has issues, but the offline world is less superficial and certainly less damn childish. Like I got exhausted with dealing with 30 to 60 something children who needed parents instead of mentors. It's like, I don't want to be your mom, dude. Like, figure out how to live and then I'll help you get better at it. But I don't want to be your damn mom. Like, you couldn't imagine, like, I'd be on live streams, dudes, like grown men, be like, dude, I wish you were my dad. Like, why? Ugh, I want to be your dad. Your dad, I sucked at being your dad. I don't want to, I don't want to do it. Ugh, no thank you. So yeah, Chambers is taking a break, taking a knee. But this is fun shit, so I don't mind sharing this with you. Jolly says, why Japanese of all languages? And hey, man, glad to see your face again. Why not? I mean, really? Why Japanese? Jolly? Really? Come on, man. There's, 9 answers to that question yourself without asking me. You know the answer. So much of what I'm interested in comes from Japan. Like, my only hobbies are collecting books, lifting weights and working out, and collecting video games. Lots of video games come from Japan. I should probably, and by the way, the answer to your question is I'm taking my family to Japan probably in the next year to 2 years, depending on how this virus bullshit finishes up. And I want to know the language. I want to be able to go there and carry on conversations respectfully with the culture and not be the obnoxious American that's walking around like, can you tell me what this means? Like, I want to be able to speak it. And I want to, like, one of the things you learn when you're a soldier in a foreign land is leave the place better than you found it, right? So if I show up to your country, like, for example, if you went to a war, you're going to have linguists and culture people come in and teach you, hey, at least at the level that I was at, they're going to come in and teach you, here's how to deal with the natives. Here's the language you need to know how to speak. Like, they're going to teach you how to go into that country and be respectful to the culture and the behaviors of that country. So I carry that with me as a regular person. If I'm coming to your country, I want to know your language, man. I don't want you to have to learn my shit. I'm in your country. I need to learn your way. Right? That's, to me, that's just respectful. Like, why would I go to your country and expect you to speak my language? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's just so arrogant and egotistical for an American to think like that. To me. So I want to go to Japan. I want to be able, I don't want to go there and immediately, I'm already going to look gaijin as fuck because I'm going to be a foot taller than most of the people there and 100 pounds heavier. I don't need more shit to help me stand out as a foreigner or a gaijin. I want to be able to blend in. At the very least, I can't blend in. I can't not be gaijin, but I can at least be gaijin who's respectful. Like, hey, at least he respected us enough to try. Hey, maybe he's one of the Americans that doesn't suck. Cool. And then I leave a positive impression on a culture of people from my family and my culture. And I think as a warrior, that's how you're supposed to think, is everywhere I go, I want to leave a positive impression. Now, you can't always leave a positive impression because sometimes you find yourself in territory where the people just aren't, they're hostile no matter what you're trying to do. They're just hostile towards you. But for the most part, try to go be in a place and add value. Don't take away from people. So that's why. That's why I want to learn it. I want to be respectful to the culture. And I love so many things about Japanese culture, some of the entertainment. I think in a lot of ways they do entertainment better than Americans do these days. And that's not Americans' fault. It's the marketing. It's the machine, that the way things have to be made. I get it. You know, I was listening to Lorne Michaels last night. I was learning. I'm always learning. And I learn from the people who do the things I'm involved in. Like Lorne Michaels runs a part of NBC from a media perspective where there's entertainers. Well, I mentor artists, and there's artists that my company helps manage their stuff. I need to learn from a guy who's been doing it since the 70s. And by the way, he's been running a show successfully since the 70s, Saturday Night Live. Now, you can argue that Saturday Night Live is not as good as it used to be, and I'd agree with you. But what he said on the show was, remember, it's just as easy, it's just as hard to make a bad show as it is to make a great one. So you shitting all over something to try to prove that you're smart. And that was why, like, when I was reviewing video games, I always tried to come at it from no matter how great or how terrible I think this game is, somebody loves it. So respect the guy and the lady or the other who loves it. Like, tell the truth, this game needs some help. But then also respect that some of the stuff you love in the world, I'm trying to find one that, speaks to me. I don't have anything handy necessarily. Do I? Yeah, I do. Hold on. Is that it? I can't reach it. Anyways, like, I also respect that just anything. I'm trying to find anything I can gleam onto here to use as a visual aid. I just also respect that some of the stuff that I'm into, other people hate. My favorite role-playing game of all time, most people think is terrible. And they think I'm an idiot and a moron for even liking it. I don't respect that you question somebody's intelligence just because they have a different emotional response to an outside stimulus. But I respect that they hate it and they think it's terrible. We just streamed, speaking of Japanese culture, we just streamed Final Fantasy VII Remake, the last stream of it a couple weeks ago, and I said I'll never play that game again, and I'm never playing another new Final Fantasy. Like right now, I'm playing Final Fantasy II, and I'm loving a lot of it because it's quirky and it's weird, and it's made for people who like to break their games. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a soap opera with combat scenes peppered in it. To me, it's the exact what I hate about modern video games. Does that mean it's a bad game? No, because a lot of people love it, and there's a lot of people who Final Fantasy VII is a cultural touchstone for them. The same way Metroid would be for me as a kid. Like, for some people, Final Fantasy VII is their Metroid. So it's like, I'm not going to go into the world and be like, oh, this game sucks. Now, I rant and I rave during a live stream and I make fun of things because that's what the show is about, is me shitting all over something. But if I can be objective for 5 seconds, if there is such a thing, it's like, hey, this game has a lot of qualities that I do respect for a different type of player. That's not me. And so when I would review games, that was my perspective. Like, somebody somewhere loves this, no matter how bad it is. I love Two Worlds. It's my favorite RPG. I don't know that they'll ever make one better in terms of what the game is. Yeah, the frame rate sucks. Yes, the story is nonsense. Yes, you can technically beat the game in the first 4 minutes if you're smart about how you do it. Like, but I love that stuff. I love breaking games. It's fun to me. So what I think is fun, I want to be respectful to other people, but I want to be respectful to other people's cultures and merit the things that people are doing, whether I like them or not. Let's see, Queen says, to be fair, us millennials were taught that romance watching movies, not just millennials, Queen, everybody was taught romance wrong. And that goes way back. When I was talking about millennials, I'm talking about, and I'm picking on millennials, believe me, you're not alone. Every generation has this. I'm just picking on the millennials to be silly. But it's more than any other generation in human history. These fucking marketers are just, you got to have these experiences for people. Like, no, you know what I want you to do? Go into a room for 2 hours today and just sit in the quiet. No entertainment, no phone, no nothing. And 2 hours later, when you give your brain a chance to stop and you realize, wow, all the shit that was going on inside my head's not bothering me as much as it used to be. Like, people need these experiences because marketers want to sell you more shit. And I'm like, stop consuming so much. Millennials, more than any other generation, have been conditioned to be consumers. You want proof? Go back to Sunday morning cartoons. Go back to me watching Transformers back in when it first came out. Every commercial was designed to sell me on buying an action figure or buying some new thing. It was all consumerism. I need Megatron. I need Optimus. How much do you need? How much more do you need to consume? And so this generation, and it's not just the millennials because there are other people alive during this time. It's just the millennial generation is where that stuff got started. Well, not started, but where it really came to the climax of how much hyper consumerism do we actually, like, how many video games do we need? Do we need Battlefield 2042? No, not really. How many more Maddens do we need? None. We got all the Maddens, but we're going to keep making it because marketers got to keep selling shit. So I'm not picking on millennials specifically. I'm just picking on the millennials are the ones that kind of are the marketers who ushered in this world of hyper consumerism at levels that I've just never seen before. It's like, why do you need to keep having all these experiences? And I have to be respectful too. It's like, well, start with people are lonely, dog. A lot of you live alone. I live in a house, 7 people. It ain't no loneliness in my house ever. So I don't need an escape to be around people. I don't need to be social. I got all the social shit I need right here in this house. So I'm also respectful of the fact that people need something else. They need to get out of the house, especially after, I have friends who are single who haven't seen their family in a year because COVID and their family's at risk and they didn't want to risk going around them and getting them sick and because one of the family members almost died from a heart issue like 2 years before. So, it's hard out there for some people. So no, I'm not picking. I will never like actually pick on a generation of people. If I'm saying that, it's totally in making fun for the sake of making a point, but using humor to do it. So don't take it as another person piling on the millennials. You guys are fine. Everybody's fine. Every generation sucks, guys, and we're all great, right? There you go. But to the point, the romance stuff. The people have been selling romance wrong for hundreds of years because they don't understand it. Romance is new. If you go back even 10,000 years in human history, what we call romance today didn't exist. Like there wasn't this, I got to get the most attractive man or the most attractive woman. It's like, hey, we got to have these babies so we don't die. Let's go. All that romance, get your ass out of here. And it's funny because the way my brain is wired, I think I would have had in some ways, a happier existence when Earth was way more brutal. Because I don't have a lot of the things humans do to me is very superficial and silly. And it's like, I don't like pleasantries and good morning, Brian. Like, who talks like that? Why are you raising your voice to be not threatening to me? Do I look like I can't kill everybody in this building? You don't need to do that. Just say good morning or don't. Just go to your desk. I don't care about you anyway. You know what I mean? Like I don't need it's a lot of superficiality is baked into our relationships. And when you realize that shit does not make a relationship work, but no one taught you what actually does make a relationship work, you get the people get lost and they don't know how to build. Let's see, Terry says I'm sorry, the other Terry says because you're going to watch anime now. Nah, I watch some anime. I'm just not a big fan. There's certain animes that I think are great. And the ones I like are actually, I like them on par with how much I like certain movies and TV shows. Like Samurai Champloo, Eden in the East. Those are great shows. Whether they're animated or not, it's really irrelevant. They're just great shows. Right? And so animes like that for me. A lot of it is just a bunch of uninteresting stories that I don't care about. It's like video game stories. They're just bad. They're just boring, parochial bedtime stories. And I realize that this is a culture of people who love being told stories no matter how boring they are. Because a lot of people haven't lived, like I've lived, I said this on my podcast too, like as arrogant as it sounds, I've lived a more exciting story than most of the video games I've ever played. So why am I going to be excited about this thing you're trying to, like I've done cooler shit that like Cloud to me from Final Fantasy VII is a bitch of a human being. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him if I was fighting for the world. Right now, in the remake, he's actually okay. That was one of the things I actually liked about the remake, is they made Cloud less of a bitch. But they also were trying, I think, in 1997 to make sure this game caters to young people who are going to have way more emotionality than a grown man who's actually been to a war versus a child in a game pretending like he went to a war. So we're going to be two very different people. I'm obviously not going to like him. He's the type of person on the battlefield I hope gets shot because he's going to get us killed. Right? You don't actually think that's a joke, but yeah. Anyway, there you go. But yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to start watching a whole bunch more anime. I don't think that's in the cards for me. I just think most of it is not that interesting. Choo. Let's see who else is here. Terry says I imported but I do want to play Japanese games. That's a good point that Terry 3 brings up. I imported Japanese games and managed to play them without knowing a single word of Japanese. It's usually easy to figure it out. Yeah, especially guys like you and I, Terry, who've played so many games. You've been through the motions, whereas I know what to do. Let's go. I've done this enough times in other games to kind of intuitively figure out what's happening here. And a lot of modern games, like I'm playing right now, I'm playing through Final Fantasy 2 on my PSP, which, man, the PSP is such a hidden treasure of a system that I think didn't get the love it deserved. And I'm loving it. There's parts of Final Fantasy 2 that are maddening, but it's just this game is so old and the designers just didn't know better. They didn't have the experience that they have now to make things better. But there's things about Final Fantasy 2 that are fantastic. And what's cool is this updated version has map, like when you get a mission and you're supposed to go somewhere, the map actually shows you like it's here. You don't need to fly around the world trying to figure it out like you had to in original Final Fantasy. You just kind of had to figure it out. Now they give you a hey, it's here. Fly down to the thing with the airship and get here and do your thing. But yes, I do want to play some Japanese games, and I would very much like to be able to read. Like, I want to play the original. One of my Holy Grail collector's items that I haven't purchased. Honestly, I don't know why I haven't purchased it. I think it's because I want to find it in the wild. I don't want to get it on eBay because I want the joy of finding it at a store. But is the Super Famicom version of Star Ocean. And I want to play through the original without the translation. I want to be able to play it as it is. Now, I have the translated version. You know, I have it. And I have... Do I have Super Famicom Star Ocean loose as the cartridge? I think I do. But I certainly have, like... what is it? Not Second Evolution. First Departure. I have Star Ocean First Departure on the PSP, which I think is one of the best ways to play it. And I just downloaded it on the Switch. I wish they had done a physical copy. Square Enix, please, for us collectors. But, you know, I would like to play the original game because it's very different from the remakes and in cool ways that I like. Like the names of the characters are different. The artwork is very different. I'd like to experience that because it's my favorite Japanese video game series of all time. I'd like to experience that. Clem, what's up, man? Hunter's back. Elix is right next to you. Yes, it is. Good old Elix. And then, you guys know what this is up here? You guys familiar with these games? You might be too young for this. And then I got my Vectrex. That's, one of the prizes in my collection right there. But one of the... and actually, I'm done with Japanese for now, so I am going to temporarily turn this off. Because I got to get ready to get out of here. So I got this. It's one of the few things I've ever done on Limited Run. My love-hate relationship with them. It's mostly love. It's just I hate that they use scarcity to sell their stuff because as a collector, you want to try to collect everything. And the good news is they make a lot of shit that I don't want to buy, and it's games that I hate, so it ends up being okay because they want me to purchase games that I would never want to purchase in the first place, collector or not. So this, my friends, is Truxton. And if you follow or used to follow Mark Bussler on Classic Game Room the way that I used to, he is actually the reason why I started making YouTube videos, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that. That Mark Bussler is the reason why, and Classic Game Room are the reason why I started making videos on YouTube in the first place. What you have here is a reproduction copy, a reprint of Truxton, which is a fairly expensive Sega Genesis spaceship shooter, or shmup if you prefer, that comes in this awesome box. And these are all basically the shooters that a company called Toaplan, I think that's how you say their name, made. It comes in this little special case. It also comes with Zero Wing. I have not played this one yet. Fire Shark, I think I have played, just not this copy of it. And Hellfire, right? So yeah, that's what that box is. And here's the guy that brought us all the goodness. Thank you, brother. All right, let's put all these games back in here. The Toaplan Shooters Collection. So yeah, I've always wanted to own Truxton. Now I do. Eventually I'll own an actual copy of the original Truxton. It's one of my holy grail items, along with the original Metal Gear complete in the box, and Musha think Musha is the game I want the most out of all my Holy Grail situations. But Elix, I got the special edition. GameStop put that out, and I was at GameStop. And my friend was like, "Yo, did you hear Elix dropped the special edition?" He's like, "I know you love that game." I was like, "Ah, give it up." And it was, I think the special edition was $30. It wasn't like typical special editions that sell for hundreds of dollars. And I believed that they released this specifically because they were getting ready to announce, and we were right, Elix 2 at E3. So this was kind of like a marketing thing to get people excited about Elix again, which I love Elix. I'm considering doing two different YouTube style videos for video games going forward. One of them you've already seen on the live streams, the Tone Deaf Gamer piece, where I play games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I spend hours just shitting all over the game because I hate it, which isn't true. I don't actively necessarily hate this game. It's certainly not my cup of tea. It's not a game that I would, like, if someone asked me, "Yo, would you buy it?" No, not for me. It's not my type of game, but I have a general disdain for a lot of modern video game tendencies. So the show lets me piss all over that. But I started thinking, what would be the opposite? If Tone Deaf Gamer is me just kind of jokingly, because I get that these publishers and these developers, especially the developers and designers, they work hard on this shit. And for someone like me to come in and say, "Oh, it's shit," and blah, 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 that's painful. Which is why when I do it, I'm like, I am not pleased with the game. I don't like this game. Let me be very clear. I don't like it. But I do respect that it is made for someone that's not me, and that person can have a great time playing this. And I would say that with all my heart, that I know people personally who did love this, and I totally get why. And it doesn't take a crazy amount of empathy for me to understand why they like it and I don't, and the things in their personality that make them like it that are different from mine. So on the one hand, it's like I respect that some designer and developer lost sleep and spent time away from their family to bring us something that I just spent 3 hours shitting all over. Right? But the shitting it's satirical. Like, I don't actually want people, I don't want game designers to fall into the lake of fire or any of the crazy stuff I say. It's just I wish games were different, and they're not. I'm not gonna lie and say I like the game. I don't. If you're like me, don't play this game. It'll piss you off. But in that same breath, I know there's somebody out here, like that kid that grew up Final Fantasy VII was your first, like, man, like the music alone is gonna get you. The music is fantastic. The visuals are fantastic. The characters, except for Barrett, they actually figured out a way to make him worse than he was in the original, not better. I feel so bad for the voice actor that had to play him. God bless you, brother, because you're good at acting. They just gave you not a great character to act. So anyway, but I have a show where I want to start to showcase. I'm thinking of a show. I may not ever do it, but where I want to showcase these kind of hidden masterpieces that nobody's playing because the whole world told you it's terrible. Like, what's great about Two Worlds? I can tell you. The whole world told you that the frame rate sucked and the story was bad. Those two statements are objectively, at least the frame rate statement is objectively true. Nobody can argue that the frame rate in Two Worlds sucks. Even on PC, it's not great. That's real. The story sucking is really in the eyes of the beholder. I think 99% of video game stories suck, so I don't go into them expecting some epic thing that's going to change my world, so I don't care. And to me, the story in Two Worlds is great because it's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's a terrible B movie that ends up being amazing because it's clearly made to be satirical. Right? So, what if we could talk about some of these games that people had never played because the world decided that this game sucked, but some designer, some developer somewhere made this, and hey, there are people out here who love it. Like when I did my Two Worlds review, a lot of people went out and bought that game on Steam for 99 cents because of that review, and were like, "B, I'm glad you made this review." Everybody said this game, like Angry Joe, Pro Jared, all said these games are terrible, and I'm like, they're not. They're just not made for those younger guys. And it's not just age, it's not made for the guy, the typical RPG nerd, which I am not one, who needs a story to matter. Like, I think all these stories are shit. Why would I expect Two Worlds to be great? It's not. None of them are. Mass Effect isn't a great story. It's interesting at times, The parochial choice making is hilariously ridiculous to me. But if I'm a 13-year-old kid who thinks I just saved an entire species by pushing a button, that may stroke my ego and make me have a great time. As an adult, I'm like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard of in my life. But by all means, continue to make me make these choices. You know, so different strokes for different folks. But yeah, I thought about how can I showcase these games that no, like Final Fantasy 2. I did record some footage on the PSP, like somebody needs to know that this game has been not unjustly, because the game has problems. It is unbalanced. And the designers, I think, tried to make something really cool. But when they tried to solve E equals MC squared, there was no good way to balance it. So you get a game that has an ungodly encounter rate, but because it has to. Because if it doesn't, you can't level up. And the way the leveling system works, while I love it because I love breaking games and beating the system, like by 10 hours into Final Fantasy 2, most enemies, including boss fights, can't hit me. Can't hit me. Not does little damage, meaning they swing and they miss, because there's a way to game the system such that you can make your characters, even though they don't have a ton of HP or even a ton of levels, because there is no levels in the game, you can adjust their stats by certain behaviors that make the enemies incapable of beating you. Now, there's always going to be an enemy that can get around it and beat the crap out of you. Like the boss fights can all get around it. But for the most part, now when I'm in a dungeon and the encounter rate is like this, boom, fight, 10 more steps, and the encounter rate just keeps hammering you. Now I can literally, when I'm bored, just hold X down and get out of the fight. Because when you're in a dungeon, you also can't run away from fights. That's a thing Final Fantasy loves, is, hey, put running away as one of the things the character can do, but when they try to do it, make them waste a turn, because 90% of the time they're not going to be able to escape from a battle. It's the stupidest shit ever, but I'm not a game designer. But like I said, you've got this crazy, terrible encounter rate, but it serves the player. The encounter rate has to be that way. But there's a lot in the game that if you just learn specifically how agility works in the game, and you learn how to get your agility up, like if you can master agility and evasion in that game, and it's intuitive, it's not like Dark Souls where you got to experiment with a bunch of shit and try to figure it out. Like, it's very intuitive. You take an action, it's like, oh, this got me here, and now my evasion rate just went up to 99, which means almost nobody in the game can hit me unless they're a boss or they have a crazy hit rate. I can go through most fights and murder everybody, which my main beef with old school RPGs is the encounter rates are too high and the fights are boring. And I only treat those fights as the means to get XP to level up. So why make each one of those fights take 5 minutes? Just make them take 8 seconds so I can get out of here, get my experience, and move on. Make the boss fight be the experience where I have to fight and be strategic. But I would be a very different game designer than most of the people that make those games. And I think most players would be very disappointed with the way I'd make the game, because I'm about saving the player time, whereas the player wants to spend their whole summer playing this game. I'd rather finish this game in 2 days and move on to something else. Right? But I also come from a generation where games weren't that long. Jolly says, I understand that dad's sentiment. Getting to know what you have showed others over the years and knowledge and wisdom you have, I myself looked at you like a friend and somewhat father figure. I can dig it. That's an honor, man. I appreciate that. You really honor me by saying that. Thank you. Jolly says, to this day, I see your life goals as to what motivates me in my life and why I still work. Yeah, man. I appreciate that, Jolly. Terry says, to be fair, if it wasn't for consumerism, I'd be out of a job. So I don't think you would. Right, well, and we're not talking about consumerism. We're talking about hyper consumerism. Now, if you're working in a business that sells bullshit, let me help you. Go make a better product that actually serves somebody, and then I'll support you. I'll even help you grow your business. If you're one of those people that makes shit products that emails me every week to try to get me to talk about it on TikTok, I'm going to hope your business burns to the ground with you in it. Now, I know you don't do that, so I can say that to you without fear. And I also don't want you to actually die because I love you. But, no, I think consumerism is fine. I just think it's gone too far, right? I'm a consumer. I'm buying video games, right? I'm not against it. It's just like, how much is enough? When is enough is what I'm saying. See, Jolly says, I never had a dad that taught me any of that, so I look at what the men that I respect in my life as mentors are doing and take those lessons. Not to be cringy. No, it's not cringy at all. I get the reference completely. Totally. What I say when I don't want to be somebody's mom or dad is I'm not going to fucking babysit you. Right? Like, I'll carry you, I'll help you. Just don't drag your feet. Like, there's a lot of people out there that will sap your energy because they don't want to do the work to become awesome. They just want you to pity them their whole life. That's actually what my podcast is about today. Is pity is the coward's version of love. And so most people chase pity instead of becoming a lovable person because they were wrongly taught by bad parents, bad churches, and bad teachers that we're all lovable and people should love us as we are. No, you are not. And if you want to believe me that love's not conditional, have children because you do love them unconditionally, but they drive you absolutely nuts because they're incompetent, they're selfish and narcissistic. Like, you love them, but you don't like them all the time. And it's like, these people suck. And if I don't train them, they're going to go in the world and be like this to other people. Ugh. You know what I mean? So no, you got to train. So many kids never got trained out of their egotistical narcissism, and they go in the world with all this entitlement that the world is supposed to bend over backwards to all my wants, because that's what my mom in school taught me. And by the way, I've learned, because marketers are evil, that if I scream loud enough, they'll eventually make a product that makes me feel good about myself, but doesn't actually help me be a better person. You know, that was one of the issues I started to have with church. It just seemed like a place where you go to get oil changes instead of a place where you go to learn, to actually take the lessons and apply them to your life and actually get better. Right? When I read scriptures like Jesus telling people, these things will you do and greater, he's setting an expectation that we're going to be better than him. Not keep showing up every Sunday to need to get an oil change because the world's too hard. Like, we're supposed to be getting better every week, not coming in here just to get patched up from the bruises the world's giving us. Right? But that expectation is never set. And if I ran a church that did that, I wouldn't make a lot of tithe money because I'm not catering to your weakness. I'm demanding and setting an expectation that you grow. You think I'm gonna have a lot of people show up on Sunday to that church? No, they're gonna be like, he's mean, he's harsh, he's cold, he's not loving enough. Well, depending on how you see the world, you might be right. But I think what the other people are doing to coddle you is actually the real evil, because they're not demanding that you step up and be everything that you have the potential to be. I'd rather you just come in here and let me lull you to sleep with storytelling every week so you can give me my 10% rent. Like, I'm not saying all churches do that. I still work and help churches out in the world that are doing really dope shit, like trying to combat human trafficking, right? I'm not holistically saying this institution is evil. I'm saying that there are places where people aren't, in my opinion, truly helping other people, right? So I don't think it's cringy. Terry, you're good, man. But see, I don't know. Just because you have a house full of people doesn't mean I'm not lonely. Well, it depends. Like, I'm around people that I like being around. So I'm not lonely because I'm actually engaging. Like, if you're in a house where you hate all the people, that's a different story. I'm not lonely because the people I'm hanging with are my best friends. You know, my wife, my kids, and my mother-in-law lives here too. These are people who I love being around. So for me, I'm not lonely at all. But if you're in a house of contention, I bet you're lonely as hell. Not you, but I bet if you're living in a house where it's very much not peaceful and people are hurtful, yeah, that's going to probably leave you being a little bit lonely. I get that for sure. He says Bryant wants the world to be Far Cry Primal. I never played that, man. I don't love the Far Cry games. I really don't like them. 3's the only one I ever finished. 2 got boring really fast. I don't think I played 4. 5 was just weird and introduced a lot of things that I thought were dumb. Although I did praise 5 for making the map smaller. It was like, finally, Ubisoft is learning that their maps are too big. To be fair, if every video game character acted like a soldier, they'd be dry and bland. What, dude, you assume all soldiers are the same. Like, we really got to work with you on fucking stereotyping and generalizing, Terry. If every guy acted like a soldier, that presumes that every soldier is the same. Like, and we've already had a discussion about your perception of the military being completely fucked up and wrong, so I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you. I think I get the sentiment of what you're trying to say is if everybody was just one type of person, it would be boring. Yes, but they also don't have to be a bitch of a human being. Who wants to play as the bitch of a human being? Unless you are, like, if you're a bitchy, angsty teenager when you played Final Fantasy VII, you probably loved it because Cloud's like you. All I'm saying is that bitchy, angsty person is someone I never want to be around in real life, whether you're a soldier or not. I don't like being around bitchy, entitled ass, fake people. And that's what Cloud was to me. That has nothing to do with him being a soldier. It's just if he were a soldier, that bitchiness would have been trained out of him, is my point. I'm not saying that a soldier is like you're that, and it's kind of insulting that you said that like every soldier has the same personality type. But I already know your bias against soldiers and that shit. Like you have a lot of biases that inform your stereotype. So I would get better at that, homie. I would get a little better at the way you look at that shit and be a little bit more open-minded to you are very much oversimplifying and generalizing shit that you really just don't have any understanding of. What's up, Harley? I'm ranting out of love, not out of hate. Of course, nobody rants. Like, I'm not railing against the shit I hate about this game because I want to be hateful and bitter. I'm doing it because I wanted to love this. There's a lot of lovable shit in this game that if you could get all of the bad shit out of the way, this could have been an amazing game. It really could have been. And it was because, like most things that publishers and you have too many decision makers, too many cooks in the kitchen get involved, and you try to make this a game that pleases everybody, and it ultimately pleases a very small audience of people who already love the game. Like I kind of knew going in that I was never going to like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I had no expectations that I would like it. I didn't like the original game that much. But it was just disappointing to see, man, they had a shot here to make something dope, and they fumbled it. Dope, to me, should always be implied when I say that. Getting my Tulsi green tea in for the day, boy. This shit'll get you energized, man. Got that turmeric in it. Have my protein shake. I need to go get the second half of my protein shake. Got my workout in. We learned some Japanese. What else we got going on today? Terry says, always blame the publishers. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to blame anybody. I certainly would like to hold people accountable who are meant to be held accountable to make shit good. But I'd like to think I'm also not arrogant enough to believe that I know what right is or that I know what good is. I know what's good to me, and that's what I talk about. Outside of that, there is no real objectivity when I'm rating a game. It's just here's how I see it. Here's how I think other people will see it. I can understand why people think Final Fantasy VII Remake is okay and good. I'll buy that. It just doesn't work for me. And I like to do shows like, I mean, if you guys were on my Destroy All Humans video, I thought we were going into that to praise the game. And then I realized this is just a freaking puzzle errand running simulator. This should just be a sandbox where I destroy human beings for 4 hours and then the credits roll. Why did it need to add? Here's why, because the people they're making games for are way more bored than I was. Like when I was a kid, we played sports and went outside, and video games were kind of the icing on the cake. Now video games are the outside part. So it's like, I think a lot of people are having to get experiences baked into their video games that I was getting from other experiences like playing sports. But I don't know that. That's just me trying to understand the world that we're living in and trying to observe it and be like, why is it this way? And why don't I like this? Like, what is it about this that if a lot of people love it, but I don't? What makes us different? That's something that makes me curious. And I like to understand people, not for the purpose of judging or tearing them down, but for the purpose of showing them respect. I'd like to know your perspective if I don't share it, because it helps me respect you and know where you're coming from and show you better love. And as a reviewer, it was always helpful to get other people's perspectives, because then I could bake that into future reviews. Like, hey, I've talked to some people who like this thing that I hate so much, and here's what they tell me they like. So if you're one of these people, you're probably going to like this game, even though I always tried to be fair. I can't be objective because there's no such thing. My emotional response to the experience is always going to be peppered into the discussion. But I can at least be fair and say, I don't like this game, but it definitely has some merits, and I can see why other people like it. I at least try to be that. Let's see. The indie introverts has been following for a while and fell off the wagon. So what's been your current goals and work? Saving the world. How about that? What are your current goals? I don't want to talk about me. What are y'all up to? That is one of the things I hate about these streams is y'all all want to know what I'm thinking. What do y'all think? I'm here to talk to y'all. What are your goals? My goals is just to keep Earth from crashing into the sun by raising it. My goals never change, dude. It's never changed. Help people develop as warrior leaders or leaders who live by the warrior ethos. If I can get enough people in the world doing that, we'll solve so many of the problems the world has. Because you'll have people that instead of being narcissistic, ego-driven humans, they're servant heart people who want to give to make the world a better place and are willing to sacrifice of themselves to do it, but also teaching them the principles so that they don't over-sacrifice and give to the world at their detriment. You can give to the world while also building your own, legacy and taking care of you and your family. And I've always been up to helping leaders, helping develop men, women, and others into the leaders who can actually make Earth dope. That's always been my mission. That's all I know how to do. I don't do anything else. I never have. Terry says, well, you're the host of the stream, so you're the center of attention. Yeah, that's fine. I can be the center of attention. And I'm telling you, as the center of attention, me talking about myself ain't that interesting. So why don't y'all chime in? Let's hear from you guys. And that's another reason why I've stopped streaming too. It's such a passive, I actually am going to do a video game stream on this for Tone Deaf Gamer. I finally figured out why I don't like video game stories beyond the fact that they're just written poorly from my perspective. I'm not a good spectator. I don't watch sports either. I hate watching sports. I want to be the guy playing. I'm not a spectator. And so what I've learned about the world is there's two types of people. There's warriors and cowards, and there's spectators and doers. There's people who love to watch and people who love to do. I'm the person who loves to do. I don't like being around people who only like to watch. And what I've learned about the internet specifically is it's mostly spectators. It's not people who are trying to produce shit. It's people who talk about their dreams but don't actually do anything about it and then blame the world when they don't get what they want. I'm not interested in that human. I'm also not really interested in helping that human because what am I going to help them with? They don't have the intestinal fortitude to push themselves beyond their own selfishness. So it's I don't want to be a spectator, and I don't want y'all to be spectators. I want you to be active participants, which is why I've been moving away from social media and getting people onto our Discord server, which is actually one of the reasons I wanted to bring you guys here today, which is to tell you to join our Discord server. Hunter, hit him with the link. If you're still here, brother. If you're not, somebody else go grab the link. I want you on the Discord server because then we can actually interact, and I don't have to stand up here and monkey around for hours to entertain you. I can actually talk to you about what's going on in your life and if there's a place for me to help you. There's two people who just joined yesterday who are asking for help getting out of a job that they hate. Great. I'm good at that shit. Ask the people who are here who used to have shitty jobs that are now getting after life the way they want to. Jolly's here. All the people that used to work with me doing shit they hated, now they're actually getting after a life that they love. If they took my advice, they're actually getting after a life that they love. That makes me excited. I don't like spectators because I'm not a spectator. I want to be around producers, and I respect that I'm on an internet show where people are inclined to spectate. And I'm just telling you, as my audience, I have different expectations of you, that you're not just going to be a consumer, you are going to produce. And if you're not producing, well, then you're not really my audience. I may be entertaining to you for 5 seconds, but that ain't the real reason we're here. I'm here hopefully to have a positive impact on your life. Yes, I want to make you smile. I want to give you a laugh. The two most empathetic things you can do for a human being: make them a meal, make them laugh. I believe in comedy. I believe in entertainment. I believe in entertaining people, but doing it with an altruistic purpose of helping that person get through their life. Right? If you come to one of my shows and I'm on stage and I'm talking, I'm going to help you. I'm going to teach, but I'm going to make it entertaining because I don't want to. You came out of your house and had to get a babysitter and you had to do shit to come to one of my shows. I'm going to make sure you leave there not just encouraged, not just inspired, not just having learned something you didn't know before, but entertained. Like, man, we had a great time. And this is how I know that that's what I'm up to. When my dad died and we did his funeral, which was a big deal because of who he was, me and my brother spoke. I closed the funeral. I was the last person to speak, which I shouldn't have been. My oldest brother should have closed the funeral because he did a stand-up routine and I tell you guys, my oldest brother is funnier than Kevin Hart. Like, he's just not a comedian. Kevin Hart ain't got shit on my older brother. He did a 5-minute set on stage in front of the casket or behind the casket and had people in tears laughing at my dad. I'm like, dude, you should have closed. Why did you let me close? I closed with everybody crying. Like, damn, you should have closed. But when we got home for the repast at my mom's house and all the neighbors came over, everybody was coming to pay their respects. One of the neighbors who's been, my parents' neighbor since I was a kid, I've known this guy since I was in high school probably. And he comes over to the house. He's like, I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but I have to say it. He was talking to me. He's like, he said, that funeral is one of the most fun events I've ever been to in my life. And he's like, I don't like church and I don't like any of that shit. He's like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that shit was awesome. Like, how do you have fun at a funeral? I said, that's my family. I said, my dad demanded that. You can't come up in here and be crying and sobbing and all sad. My dad would come back from eternity and put his foot up my anus if I'd have had everybody in there just crying. I was like, that's who my dad was. Like, don't come in here and everybody fucking crying. He lived his dream. Y'all should be in here cheering. Right? And he was just like, that's the most fun I've ever had at any event. And we're at a funeral. I was like, that's how my family rolls. That's us. Right? So, yeah. I get that I'm the center of attention, but my expectation of the audience is that you don't just be a spectator. You may start that way, but I also want you to be a producer. I also want you to be a contributor. And what I learned about the reason why I don't watch a lot of movies or play a lot of story-based video games is, frankly, you're not telling me a story that's more interesting than my life. And I'd rather be the person out there slaying the dragons than hearing about Aragorn doing it. I'd rather just, I'm not a spectator. I just learned that about my life. I don't want to watch sports. I still, somewhere in my crazy brain, think if I can get my back healed and my Achilles tendon back in good shape, which is in great shape now, I'm faster and more healthy now than I was 10 years ago. Like, shit, I might still walk on a team. Now, not for the purpose of playing in the NFL, just because it's fun. Like, just to have the experience of going out for a team and seeing if they would even not laugh me off the field, which they probably would. That's more interesting to me than tuning in on Sunday to watch them play. I'd rather go out there and break my fucking leg banging skulls with those dudes on that field. That would have the time of my life getting wheeled off the field. Like, yeah, baby, fuck yeah, show them how it's done. Like, that would be more fun to me, 1,000 times more fun to me than watching it on Sunday. And that's what I want from my audience, man, is y'all to think more like producers and contributors and the people actually doing the shit, not the people just watching the game. But what I've learned is most people, I'd say about 98% of people on this planet are just spectators. They don't want to be the guy slaying the dragon because dragons are hard to slay and they can kick a lot of ass. And most people don't want to walk away with the scars that are necessary to also have the glory. But hopefully, if you've been hanging around me, that's starting to change. Jolly says, my current goals is to get more products into the website so it looks like an actual legit thing instead of a scam. So what I would say is, instead of more products, actually master selling one product. Get really, really good at selling one product and just sell that. Just make that product the focus of what you do and figure out who that product is for and what the benefits are that'll make them want to buy it. Find a couple of influencers that can help you. Might be one that you know, to help you spread the word, and just sell one product. Then when you master that product, then launch another one. What most people try to do is, and it's in my 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing book, which you didn't read your mandatory reading from the Good Life Playbook, specifically the Social Media Master University, because if you had read that, you'd know that you just broke law number 17. You diluted your product base by adding too many things all at once. Just get good at selling one thing. I don't sell, like, I do video games and I do philosophy and I talk about books and I talk about leadership, but it's all centered around helping each one of you become leaders who take control and command of your lives. All the video game shit, it's all pointing to one thing that I am selling, which is selling you on the idea that you deserve to have a great life. And if you're willing to put in just a little bit more work than most people put in, you'll have an even greater life than you could ever imagine. And it's not as hard as you think. Most of your problem is going on between your ears. It's not your circumstances. It's the dumb shit our parents and our churches and schools programmed us with. And if we can deprogram and relearn the right way, you'll be killing in a week, right? Or a month. Doesn't take long to turn that around. But get that I am good at pitching that one thing. I shroud it in different types of products, but it's all the same product. Right? Just get good at selling one thing. And that's what a lot of people misunderstood about me in the beginning. Like, B's all over the place. No, he's not. He's just creating multiple touch points for people to get to the same point down here. And everyone thought he's all over the place. No, he's not. He's got one focus. It's just he understands that to get people on this one thing, he's got to be empathetic to different people's needs. Right? So anyway, that's what I would say about your site, man. And by the way, I think that's a great goal. Been trying to develop a rough draft for an after-school program for creative children. All right, Andrew, are you on my Discord server? If you are, if you're not, get on there. I'm going to connect you with my friend Jay, who is working with one of my other boys who mentors warriors. He's already built the program. It's already built. He can share his notes with you to help you build your own, or maybe he can bring you into what he's doing and help repurpose what he's already doing in his space for what you're doing. Because what you're saying is exactly what people in my network are already doing and have already built the curriculums for. So rather than reinvent the wheel, think like a computer scientist and always be a plagiarist, meaning you don't steal. But if the thing's already built, just go get the thing that's already built and repurpose it for you. So if you're on Discord, if you're not on Discord, you need to get on there, and I need to hook you up with my buddy Jay so you guys can talk about that, because he can. And this is why you guys need to be on Discord, man. There's people out here. There's tons of us already winning at a lot of the stuff that you guys want to do. So why not come hang with us and let us help you get to where you're trying to go? Because we already have the roadmap and we already know where the pitfalls are that we can help you avoid. Jolly says, working on labels with my designer. Cool. Terry says, well, like I said, I'm working on a Star Ocean comparison article to figure out which Star Ocean game is. I love that. So please share that with me. Share that on the Discord in the gamer section when you have that, or share it as a work in progress. If it's something you're working on and publishing it as you go, I'd love to read it as you. I love Star Ocean, man, and I love you. So I'd love to see what you're up to and read it and just take. I'd love to hear your perspective and understand, because you and I are so similar in a lot of ways. We're different in some ways, but we're way more alike than we are different. I'd love to hear it, man. I'd love to hear it. So please, when you're done or while you're working on it, please share that with us so I could read it and just be a part of what you're doing, man. Let's see. Wild Child Tarot says, what up? Is that Irish? Is Wild Child Irish? Are you the same person? I need to make sure I know who I'm talking to here. But the overall goal is mainly to remind people why we play video games and showing why gaming is nowhere near as good as it used to be. So I would encourage you, and this is something I learned from Lauren Michaels that I'm starting to think about, is I can be hypercritical of things that I want to be great, but it comes across as hating because people are sensitive. And Terry, you and I are very much alike in that we don't have the same social sensitivities as most people. So I don't see what you're saying as negative. I see it as a person who wants it to be great, but people are very sensitive. So what I would say is, and maybe you're already doing this, so don't take this as me trying to advise you, just me adding perspective. Make sure that you're baking in, games aren't as good as they used to be, but in a lot of ways, they're a million times better than they used to be too. So make sure you're balancing your E equals MC squared equation. Like, find the fantastic. What's great about modern video games, right? Like, why do I love Elix, right? And how could Elix be better by removing some of the things that it still does that tie back to the old school? If they would bake in some of the more modern sensibilities, that game would be way better. So I would say balance out your negativity with, hey, there's also fantastic things about this. Because otherwise you just, even though you're trying to overall be positive, remember that your audience is more sensitive than you, and you got to be empathetic to that. You got to bake in the positive, because people are like that, man. If they never hear something positive, they just think you're hating. It's like, no, I'm just pointing out, hey, yeah, there's great stuff about it, but I'm focusing on the bad so they can improve it. All right, all right. Wild Child says yes. Cool. Emulation, the best thing to come from modern gaming. I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of things about modern games that I'm glad they're here. Like Final Fantasy II lets me save anywhere. Thank Jesus for that. But that's the remake. The original didn't. Guys, I got to get up out of here. I got an appointment I got to get to. It's been awesome hanging and chatting with you guys. I pray you have a great rest of your day. Like I said, I'm kind of on hiatus for a while, so you may see a stream here or a stream there. But most importantly, I am taking time away from social media in general, just to recharge and get myself into an even better place than I'm already at, so that I can be a better service to all of you. That doesn't mean, for those of you who are in one of my mentorship programs, I'm not taking any real time away from that. I'm still here for you. So please continue to hit me up. And come on the Discord server. Come hang with us. Come let us know who you are. Introduce yourself. Excuse me, indigestion. And let us know specifically how we can help you build your stuff. All right. I love you guys so much. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace.